we are completely stoked today to bring to you here at the Voice Choice one of the many voices that are used for Microsoft. And we introduce to you from Dallas, Texas, joining us now, Sean Letourneau. How's it going, Sean?
Hey guys, going great. I'm doing really well today. How are you?
Glad you could be here. So you're a guy of extremes. Let's begin by illustrating to the audience what you sound like on one of your audition clips. Then we'll let the audience hear the Microsoft. So without further ado, here's that clip we want you to hear on the Extreme Audio.
Oh, the agony! I loved her, Rory, but now she's across the country, so far. Our love died so young.
Not to minimize the situation, boss, but didn't she just move an hour away?
You imbecile! Think of the gas money!
So that's some really strong, extreme audio, Sean. Now, let's let them hear what wound up getting you cast and what you sound like in the Microsoft sound, okay?
Absolutely.
Here we go.
You're gonna die either way. So would you rather take the chance to die tomorrow with purpose? Or 60 years later, miserable and full of regret? If I were you, I would shut up and get up.
You know what to do! Rattle them, boys! No! You idiots forgot to buy ammo! Oh, for God's sake! Never mind, everybody. Enjoy your evening.
That's quite a difference. You know, it is. You know, the difference between, should we say, one type of sound and another type of sound. It's unbelievable. How did that particular audition wind up getting you into the Microsoft world?
You know, it came to me in an ideal kind of way that every voice actor sort of dreams of when you start working and you're getting into the industry, in which I was sort of just sat around in a little bit of a dry spot, as it's called, or a dry spell. You know, not really booking a lot of stuff. And you start to, you start to think like, oh, am I good enough? I don't know, and you're worrying. And they just sort of directly, a client, the marketing agency for the client, which was Microsoft, directly reached out, and they just said, hey, we listened to your demo, and I have a broad range of voices on my demo, and that's always really important as a voice actor to have a lot of choices. They said, we really liked your voice. We'd like you to read for this script. It's for one of our clients, Microsoft. And they said it not so nonchalantly. And I grew up on computers, and so I was like, freaking out. And yeah, next thing I knew, I just read for it, tried to sound real and laid back, which is usually not like my go-to. And then a few weeks later, lo and behold, you get that fateful email that you hope you get, where they start the sentence with "Good news, Sean." It's like you've been booked for the role, and I was ecstatic. So, but yeah, it just kind of fell into my lap, which is not common. That's for sure.
No, it's not. So let's back this up with yet another link of your audio, and we'll insert this now. Then we'll come back and once again continue this theme of the conversation. So here we go with link number 2 from Sean Letourneau.
See, that's the trouble with you, Arthur. You're all talk. But when it finally comes down to it, you're just a little lamb. No, get away. I can't control it.
You have to understand the difference between, I happen to wonder what was going on in the producer's mind when they heard that particular extreme voice and they turned it into the mellow corporate delivery of Microsoft. Did this occur to you?
No, not really, I suppose. It doesn't occur to me most of the time, I feel like, because I often both in career and in just life. I feel like I am quite two-sided in that way, where I'll do something really like melodramatic and goofy, and I'll go ballistic around in one context, and then in another I feel like I'm a very low-key kind of meditated guy. And so I suppose I just use that facet in my work, and it never really occurs to me how jarring it might seem to people whenever they hear my stuff.
You grew up a little differently than the normal person. Why don't you expand on that just a little bit for me?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled, unlike most people, and not even the typical story where you're homeschooled after you've been in public school for quite some time. Maybe there's some personal reason your parents decided that, but I was homeschooled from the get-go. I had a little co-op, where every Friday I would have almost a fake public school day, if you will, where it was a bunch of other homeschooled kids from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. to do extracurriculars. So they had sports, and they had a theater program and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, I lived my childhood in solitude, which made me. I was still socialized, but definitely there's some aspects that were missing, and I was, relatively introverted as a child, and I kind of relied on my brother and cartoons to be my friends when I really grew up. So
it doesn't seem like it, and you can notice it if you're me and you listen to voice A and then voice B, that there's quite a disparity there. If I did not know better, would you consider yourself a loner?
To an extent, yeah. I definitely have a social battery that I can get burnt out, and I need to recharge every now and then. And then there's something to say about being able to just, when you are working, to just sit there and kind of get lost in your own world alone and let yourself get immersed, instead of bright lights and cameras and producers and all this stuff with on-camera work. So I definitely have that aspect in my personality. It's one of the things that attracted me to this career.
Voiceover being its own thing is part of what turned you on to it, so to speak. Yeah. Are you, let's see here, you've been doing this, 30, 40 months, something like that?
Yeah, I would say about 2.5, coming on to 3 years.
You do understand that there are a lot of voiceover artists that are watching this that are saying 2.5, 3 years, and he winds up with Microsoft. I'm 15 years in, and I can't get them to call me back. You do understand the rareness of your situation, don't you?
I suppose I do now. I try not to. It's strange. I feel like there's always this. You have to have a certain hunger when you're doing a job like this. When you're doing an artistic field, you're almost never satisfied, right? You dream of booking something, and then you book it, and then the second you get it, you just think of the next thing you need to do. And it's always surreal. It never really occurs to me the magnitude of some of the stuff I've accomplished. I have to sort of sit back and think to myself, like, man, if 12-year-old Sean saw the way he looked and now and the things that he did, he'd think he was the coolest guy in the world. But I guess I needed you, Keith, to kind of knock it into my head. I don't know. It never really occurred to me.
Well, it's just, it's to be with Microsoft, even if you were cutting tags at the end of a TV spot, that would take most people years to accomplish. And so it's really stuck out in my mind, your appreciation for the extremes, because the Microsoft stuff is really, really mellow, very corporate. It's right in the pocket. It sounds good. So let's take a listen to the third link of your extreme audio that you submitted, which is an example of the way that you see yourself in the audio world. And let's take a listen to that now.
You're gonna die either way. So would you rather take the chance to die tomorrow with purpose, or 60 years later, miserable and full of regret? If I were you, I would shut up and get up.
You know what to do. Rattle them, boys. Oh, you idiots forgot to buy ammo. Oh, for God's sake. Never mind, everybody. Enjoy your evening.
Where is that coming from? You seem like such a mellow fellow, so to speak. That is some really raw audio. Where are you finding this in yourself?
It depends on.
Seriously,
It depends on I guess the context of what is needed. I think everybody has moments in their life where they feel a significant amount of emotion, or they can relate to a character, no matter how extreme. And I suppose it's just the ability to really draw from that singular experience, perhaps you may have, or multiple, where you can relate to that character and really just stick to it and empathize and drive and push and push and push until you get to that point. It's a difficult thing to describe. You're reading words on a page, and you have to have such conviction. It just comes from how much you are capable of feeling, I suppose, from your experiences or how you can empathize with others, I guess. And I try to do it justice, I suppose.
where would you like to go with that particular voice? Because obviously that doesn't sound like Microsoft. It sounds like animation, characters, any number of different things. But you've got a different personal direction, I think. Am I right?
I believe so. Yeah, I mean, I would love to do. I would love to do more anime and full feature cartoons or animated movies or prelay animation, as it's called, and video games. I've done quite a few video games, but it's always fun. I really enjoy the character work side of things. I think it's what really drew me into the field, because it was definitely a large sense of escapism as a child. When you don't have a lot of kids in the neighborhood to hang out with because no one ever goes outside these days,
right?
And you're homeschooled. Right. Your options are a little bit limited for as far as entertainment goes. So
I'm an only child myself, so I understand what you mean by a small universe socially.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I know exactly where you're coming from as you're describing that.
Yeah.
You learned from an instructor, I take it. You sound very well trained. Is that true?
Yeah, from a few. I would say my first one was Bruce Carey. He's in Dallas at Voices Carey. And then I actually had the privilege last year for a short period up until this year. At some point I had some scheduling complications, but I used to help teach for him after being a student of his for quite some time. And, I've done workshops here and there, and I did theater pretty much all throughout my school years. And right now I'm getting coaching from Richard Tatum. It really never ends, but yeah, I've definitely got some coaching. I didn't just have a good performance in me from thin air. Maybe I thought I did, but I guarantee if I go back and listen now, I probably didn't.
Well, this particular podcast is sponsored by The Voice Shop, and for people who want to get into voiceover, they would go to voiceshopcoaching.com, and in doing that, they would be able to learn from beginner all the way through characters, and they'd be able to discover if in fact they wanted a career in voiceover. That particular type of format was instrumental in you moving your career along, wasn't it?
Oh, I would say so, absolutely. It's where I got my first demo, which I used for years, and it's what booked me most of my work. It taught me all the fundamentals of commercial work, which is really what keeps your lights on when you're doing voiceover.
True.
And there was an aspect of it where I love those types of group settings or coaching settings where you go in and you can meet other peers and other actors, because I feel like there's a moment with every person who's aspiring to be a voice actor or an actor in general, and you see all these other people who are in different stages of their career and maybe different levels of talent as they're working to improve themselves, and it's just so inspiring to see other people working for the same dream. And when you're kind of in that setting, it really sets in stone in your mind whether or not you really want to do this, because you see how hard people are working for it, and then it's either going to intimidate you or it's going to inspire you. And for me, it inspired me, and I was like, I definitely I want to do this. And some of those people I used to take classes with now are killing it at Crunchyroll, doing tons of like lead roles for anime and in AAA games, and it's just awesome to see. And it's just it's inspiring. It makes you really want to commit. So.
Talk about your professional lifestyle. And where I'm trying to lead you is the fact that you work for yourself, you work at home, you train through a computer, the auditions come to you. Just talk to me a little bit about how much you enjoy this profession as a newbie, which you technically are.
Yeah, I like it a lot. There's a lot of hurdles, and it's been very challenging for me as somebody who tends to, while I do like being my own boss, setting my own schedule, wearing pajamas while you work, if you will. There's a lot of bonuses that come with that kind of stuff. There is the challenge of being, very assertive, and you have to market yourself and almost. You have to sit in front of people and say, I know my worth, I'm worth a lot. And you have to reach out to somebody and go, hey, I'm very valuable. Would you like to work with me? And you have to just be upfront and market yourself like that. I found that to be very challenging because I've always been, sort of that, sort of shy, modest guy, if you will. But I definitely enjoy the auditioning aspect. That's most of your work as a voice actor. You're going to be sitting there. It's a 1 to 100 odds, really, every time you audition for something.
1 to 100.
That's what a lot of people say. You bring a decent booking rate or a standard
1%.
booking rate. Yeah, it's one job for every 100 auditions, essentially.
1%. Yeah.
So you really have to fall in love with the process, which I feel like I have, because even if you book the gig or not, you kind of have the opportunity to play in that world for a little bit, whether you had the job or not. And you get to have fun with it. And if you're not having fun with it, you probably shouldn't even bother, So.
How many times a day do you audition?
Well, it depends on the influx, but I try to get at least, 20 auditions in a day if I can find them. Get a good standard, hit that 100 mark a week, if I'm able to.
So you're hitting 100 auditions a week?
If I can. Sometimes it's a slower week, whether it's through pay-to-play sites, agencies, what have you. And I'll only have about, let's say, 30 that are worth auditioning for available. But it sort of just depends on a week-by-week or month-by-month basis what gets sent to me or what I can find. But I try to do 100.
That is, when I think about it, that's quite a workload of prospective work. To lay out 100 auditions and hope for one job. Where does the fiber come from to be able to tolerate that type of odd that you're dealing with?
It doesn't come I almost want to say, at some point, you get numb to it. Because I've talked to a lot of younger actors too, and they ask about that. They say, how do you handle rejection better, or how do you stop being so nervous when you do an audition, or if you perform in front of people? And I've always kind of said it doesn't really go away per se. At some point, you just have done it so much, you sort of have this if it happens, it happens, sort of mentality, and you learn to just sort of let go and have fun with it. So. I will say when I started, it was definitely difficult. I was terrified to audition for really high-profile stuff because I didn't want to get rejected, or I didn't want to not hear back from them. But at some point, you have to send it out, or else you're not going to get anything. So you get a little more calloused over time. It became easier to sort of just throw your voice into the void, if you will, because you have to realize that even if you didn't get the job or if you were rejected, it doesn't necessarily mean that you were bad, but rather someone out there just had more of a natural sound to them that was more appropriate for the job, or they were just a slightly better pick. Your turn will come eventually.
That's interesting. You said that your turn will come eventually. Are you at peace with your career path to date? Are you happy where you are?
I'm happy with where I am. I wouldn't say I'm at peace. Again, I think with a creative field, you're always hungry for more, and I think that's what keeps you from staying afloat. You can't really rest. There's never really that I've made it moment that people dream about, where you can kind of kick your feet up and people are just throwing jobs at you. You know, I'm not Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. Not everybody has a movie trailer voice.
Exactly.
That's true.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Gabe Kunda, I want to say, is a recent younger actor who's doing that. He's crushing it. He has essentially the, like, you know, coming out December 12th, super low, kind of spooky horror movie trailer voice, and I hear him in literally every single trailer. So he's killing it, but not everyone has that privilege. So for the most part, voice actors, you have to constantly be auditioning and searching. So I'm very happy with where I'm at, but I will never be at peace, truly, Keith.
That's quite an admission, Sean. I appreciate you sharing your story with us this afternoon, because a lot of people, now that they've seen this and they realize that it is not a walk in the park, may walk in another direction than voiceover. The market is flooded, as we both know. There's plenty of people to be a voice out there, and it sounds like you've got it really hammered down in your head, that you're really, really focused on what it takes to get somewhere, because if you continue to do it as you're doing it with these choices that you're offering, things will go fine for you, my friend. This I am sure. So, you know, thank you so much for joining us today and telling us what it's like.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
We really appreciate it, and we will be talking to you next time, listening for you. Okay.
All right. Sounds great, Keith. I appreciate you, man.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
man.
you.
Bye.
Have a good one.